Sorry about that, folks.
I'm muted tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I think we got some now. Yeah, we got one.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Um, Always a few technicals. We're going to work on that, though. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. This is a special edition of Education is the Best Medicine.
I hear a little.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in. This is a special edition of Education is the Best Medicine.
Pull one of them down.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in. This is a special edition of Education is the Best Medicine. Thank you for tuning in. This is a special edition of Education is the Best Medicine. So we've been having I had a little buzzing going in the background. We're learning, always in an environment to learn. I think that's real important for people anyway. Uh, Want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in and making it a part of your time frame. We can play the show back, I'm sure. And just a few things on my mind in um, October into November. Um, I guess I have to say, we always have to be okay with change. Change is constant, and we just have to be okay that it's happening. Just a second. Thank you. Um, Thank you to my Facebook family for being so patient, and we're going to always kind of work to do better. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. This is a special edition of Education Best Medicine. Miss Howard, again, I'll say again, is on vacation. I think she's in the Caribbean, her and family. Well deserved rest. And I asked her, did she want us to talk about anything in particular? And she said no. And so I thought I'd kind of start out by saying thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a part and making me a part of your family. I really, really do like the comments and all the shared information. And you look, my Facebook page, I don't have any control of what's put on there. It's I try to block out a few things, but man, it's just everything's on, and then it's open. That's the whole thing about media and open platform media. You're subject to a lot of different things, so you have to kind of be okay with that. So, kind of want to start the show off with again by saying good afternoon, everyone. And I'm a physician's assistant working in public health and done so for the last 35 years. And um, this show is really community voices, so that's one of the vein I want to take this in. And again, she didn't have any issues with what I would talk about, so I said okay. Uh, and I guess it's important that we do have community voices, and you, the community, must speak up and speak out. I'm a healthcare advocate. I speak up. I get up, speak up, and speak out because the health of our nation and the health of our community, and as we see in particular, the mental health of our nation and our community is so important. Um, but October, right? It's the 10th month. It's on a Georgian calendar, and we'll talk about that, which is widely used across the world. And I just kind of like set our stage and the month we're in and the year we're in and what kind of brings us to this nexus. What is the October to us as a community, as a society, as a world, and it's again a way of naming time and frame and a space of time where people are born and people die and that kind of thing. So the name October comes from the Latin word octo, meaning eight. This is because in the original Roman Republic calendar, October was the eighth month of the year. The Roman calendar was only 10 months long and included the following months: Martis, April, Maris, Julius, Quintilis, Sextilis, September, October, November, December. Well, again, probably the first few were the Roman emperors. So, and as you can see, January and February didn't hadn't been added to the calendar yet. Like its neighboring months, September, November, December, the month of October kept its numerical name even after Julius Caesar expanded the calendar year to 10 months, from 10 months to 12 months. Hmm, yeah, kind of interesting. And you know, there's a few things going on in October. In particular, we highlight breast cancer awareness, and I'm going to speak a little bit more on that later. But the baseline is to get your mammogram. We're seeing a wide spectrum of women with first-time breast cancers, and early mammograms seem to be really being beneficial in terms of keeping cancer in the first line stages. So please get your mammogram, ladies. Um, I'd like to send my condolences to the families of the 18 members of families that were massacred by Mr. Robert Card. And as you know, say main gunman Robert Card found dead after 2-day manhunt. And I bring this up because, first of all, I just found out he was an expert in weapons. So here you have a man who's an expert in weapons, who has a mental challenge in a small, could you say, bedroom community, uh, and it seems kind of very frightening that this would occur in what I would consider to be a very safe community by most parts. People say it was safe, and you can walk your dog and leave the door unlocked, maybe, and that kind of thing. But it wasn't, and it's made more horrific by the fact that this individual had a weapon of war. They say keep saying rifle, but I think it had to be one of those maximum capacity weapons with those magazines. And what I mean by those magazines having more than one clip. So a clip is about 10 bullets, depending on the kind of clip you have. When I was in the military, I think it could house maybe 20 shells in that clip. And you can shoot it rapid fire. I fired them. They're lethal. That's why I'm not an advocate of guns. So the story that he went to these two uh, focal points in the community, bowling alley and just a rec center, and he shot him up. He just shot it up, and you can see the video, and you can see that it's almost as though he's mapped this out in his mind, and he's just taking aim at people. And my concern is the discussion around mental health, the discussion around uh, high powered weaponry, the discussion of a community felt it was safe, but it really, really wasn't. And and it got me back to thinking about men and mental health. And I did a show earlier, again, Community Voices, about men. I asked GPT Chat, which is one of the things I research when we're doing these kinds of things. I try to be really impactful on research. I don't do the research from a informational standpoint, but try to review the literature, to read the literature, and see the sources. So it says that when I did the search, I think it was last year, it said the phrase American men in crisis can refer to various challenges and issues affecting men in the United States. While I don't have access to real-time data, I can provide information based on trends until September of 2021. Here are a few areas where American men have faced concerns or struggles. I would add that if you're a man of color, multiply that by about 100. Because the things that I'm going to add a thing, we don't want to talk about sex, we don't want to talk about um, race. We don't want to talk about psychological issues. A lot of things in America doesn't want to talk about until it's in their face. So, mental health. Men in the United States often face stigma and barriers when it comes to seeking help for mental health issues. Depression, anxiety, and suicide rates tend to be higher among men compared to women. Mr. Card, for example, whatever whatever mental challenge he had, the community that he was in, and I'd be surprised if it wasn't, was hard strapped to find him mental health. He would have had to seek it out and find someone to help him. And that brings me to mind about California now and the California Care Act. And what will that mean for folks that have chronic mental health challenges that they do not want to treat? And I also like to say that, you know, I think that individuals are always going to face challenges. It's the nature of the beast. It's the humans in you. If you things aren't changing in your life, then you're not changing. And the mere fact that things aren't changing is a change. So we have to be kind of mindful of that and be very, very respectful of challenges in our life and how they affect us and how we face and how we deal with it and who rallies around us. And it's complicated. I agree. But it's a social network. And if the social network isn't provided, then people result to murdering 18 people. Suicide. Okay. And this is number one through five. It touches on mental health, suicide, substance abuse, education, employment, incarceration. So, suicide. Suicide is a significant concern for American men. According to the Centers for Disease Control, men account for 3 out of 4 suicides in the United States. 3 out of 4 suicides. That's a lot of men killing themselves. You take 10, that means 4 men have killed themselves. Somebody's father, somebody's mother, somebody's son, somebody's uncle, somebody's partner. Substance abuse. Men have historically had higher rates of substance abuse compared to women. Issues such as alcoholism, opiate addiction, and drug overdose have been a concern for many men in the United States and in the world, but definitely in the United States. Definitely a discussion around access to treatment. Definitely a discussion around stigma related to that lack of treatment. Definitely institutional structural racism issues that prevent people from seeking care, not only from a mental health aspect, but from a drug addiction aspect. If these things aren't welcoming to people, if they don't, if they don't treat them like diseases, then it becomes stigma. And what I tell people, that same person, breaks with treatment and comes out your home and breaks in or breaks in your car or assaults you because they need money for drugs. And sometimes the outcome isn't just them taking whatever it is they took. Sometimes it's the death of that individual or the permanent injury of that individual. Treatment's easier, makes more sense, but penny wise, pound foolish. Education and employment. While there have been strides in recent years, certain challenges persist regarding educational attainment and employment opportunities for American men. Men face difficulties in certain sectors, such as the decline of traditional male dominated industries and the demand for new skill sets, lifelong learning. I see it in the communities of color where the women are attaining educational advancement and advanced degrees and advanced placement on the job, and the men aren't. There's a few ways you can look at that. One way you could look at that is when a society wants to control certain members of that group, they provide the power and social climbing access that they don't afford to the entire group, thereby the end of male dominated um, jobs, construction, plumbing, mid management. And so the women are replacing the men, so the men are now unemployed. I've always had to transition jobs. always. Always had to transition jobs. Ethics always plays a role. Doing the right thing always plays a role. You won't always get what you think you should get, but I sleep good at night. I rest well. So, and again, how does this become a balance? A balance so that there's no everyone can win. I mean, we want win wins, right? You know, but the traditional roles have changed. And so, how do we make and help folks, help men address this? Because if they don't, you have a man that goes and shoots 18 people because he felt, or the voices in his head felt, he was being disrespected. And that's just not, you know, verbosity. That's what happens. It's called psychosis, delusions, lost with reality, not responsible. Anyway, and incarceration. Men represent a significant majority of incarcerated population in the United States. High rates of incarceration can have long-lasting effect on the individuals and their families, contribute to challenges in employment, education, and overall well-being. The prison industrial complex is alive and well. Just a cleaner, smarter, cheaper version. And I hear certain governors calling for more incarceration, less education and treatment when people are having mental health challenges. Lock them up. Where did that come from? I don't know. Where did it come from? Lock them up. Lock who up? And why? Because you don't agree with them? Anyway. And so GPT says that it's important to note that the issues are complex and can vary based on factors such as race, socioeconomic status, and geography, location. It's advisable to refer to more recent studies and reports for the most up-to-date information on the specific numbers and trends surrounding these crises. Again, this is a Bleed Radio, 24-hour inspirational. Uh, I want to thank Etymology and again Curtis. Couldn't do it without you, um, and all the folks that make this what it is. Our brother and sister shows. Please tune in on them, watch on them, you know, love on them, right? To say anyway, and it's been real a great year. Been very happy. And I want, I guess for me, as I have to tell people, you can't define yourself by anything but the love of God and your family, who you are as a person. That's all you can define yourself at. Everything else is extra. Job is extra, money is extra, you know, lack of mass is extra. I mean, talking about COVID, it's, it's not gone anywhere. It's alive and well. Uh, anyway, so I kind of got more into this male, because we see a lot of single male men, and we see a lot of men with guns shooting people, and for whatever reason. Um, but the real deal is why. So I looked up this term a few years back. It's really old. It's an old term. It's called lone wolf. I said, and I asked the question to GPT chat. I said, in the context of terrorism, what does that mean? And who could it apply to? This is our male uh, uh, shooters that are just single-handedly, tearing up communities with one gun. Well, it says that says the term lone wolf in the context of terrorism and its relationship to homegrown terrorist threats has evolved over time. Its usage can be tracked back to the 20th century. To the 20th century, the concept of a lone wolf terrorist typically refers to an individual who acts alone or with minimal outside support to carry out acts of terrorism. So, if we had known about Mr. Card, could we stop him? You'd have to know about him to stop him. He was in a very, very bedroom community. He worked at this local factory, his recycling plant, in the classic cabin-like, uh, living space, you know, movable living space. Uh, Again, very isolated, except for probably going to work. And then he lost his job. He became unemployed. And like everyone, he has bills to pay. He has, you know, family to take care of. He just wants to live a life and just snap. Just snap it. Nothing you can do. Says lone wolf terrorists, by their nature, are often harder to detect and prevent as they operate independently and may not have direct connections to established terrorist organizations. Fits like Mr. Card. Man. One of the early instances of a lone wolf style attack in the United States was in 1995. This is where it got interested in me. The 1995 Oklahoma City bombing carried out by Timmy Lee McVeigh, who acted independently but was influenced by anti-government extreme ideologies. Does that sound kind of current? Extreme ideologies moving people toward violence, threats against lawyers, against government officials, against elected officials, against the head of organizations like, you know, Planned Parenthood. What is going on? Timothy McVeigh. The thing I remember about Timothy McVeigh and the Oklahoma City bombing is that it blew up a child care center with all these babies in it. Kind of like when Darth Vader became Darth Vader. He becomes Darth Vader when he goes in and kills all these Jedi children. It's something I really can't watch. It's like, think about that. He killed babies. They don't say that. He killed babies. These were babies. They were at a daycare center at the I never can't forget it. It was the bottom floor. He blew it up. The whole building fell on those babies. The other interesting thing I think about that, again, because I'm in this age group, is that they thought it was three Arab men running from the scene. So they really accused three men of color first until they found out it was a white male, rich millionaire farmer who just had an issue. However, it's important to note that the term lone wolf wasn't widely used at that time to describe such individuals. So here's what I say about certain things. Certain things, there's what we, again, lies are truth, truth's a lie. Historically, you'd have to look up and understand that that was a white male that blew up those kids because it don't say it. It doesn't say it. I think race is only a factor when people of color are involved and the fear factors in place. And the thing about Mr. Card was that he was a member of the community. That there was a uh, Mr. Card was a member of the community, and they knew him. They had to. You're gonna find out that they knew him. He was just kind of like that weird person that walked around, and maybe talked to himself, and okay, let him be. He ain't gonna hurt nobody. He's just crazy. Okay. So it says while the specific term lone wolf may not be coined until later, the concept became more prominent in the 20th century as terrorist organizations and governments improved their ability to counter organized terrorist groups. Lone wolf terrorists, by their nature, are often harder to detect and prevent as they operate independently and may have direct connections to the established terrorist organizations. The concept of the homegrown terrorists, where individuals are radicalized within their own countries or communities, often intersects with the concept of the lone wolf terrorism. The phenomenon gained greater attention in the 21st century as radicalization, often through online means, became a significant concern. The term homegrown terrorism gained traction in the wake of events like the 2005 London bombings and the 2009 Fort Hood shootings. I was in the military, Fort Hood, right in the middle of Texas. No, it's absolutely nothing there. It was in the infantry. I was in the infantry battalion. Yeah, you do something before you get into medicine or whatever you do. There's always things that you do that are different. So, hey, it afforded me education, allowed me to take care of my family. Uh, I benefited from terms of education. So, hey, I don't knock the military. I loved it. No, it says something when you get up and raise your hand and say, I will protect this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. All enemies, foreign and domestic. That's the oath that you take as you swear into each branch of the military, including the Coast Guard, I think. So that is something that I think that more Americans need to appreciate because now it's an all volunteer army, Navy, Marines. All those men, all those now that's an American. Those are Americans. Those young men and women out of West Point, out of Naval Academy, they are American, and they're having some issues. A lot of sexism and gender discrimination against women that needs to be addressed. But as a whole, for me, and I have a generation of men that went in the military, it was a good thing. Very, very good thing for me. I highly recommend it to young men that want to find their way. You find out who you are and where you are and what you'll deal with, what you want to deal with. It's ain't like prison. It's an opposite opportunity. It says that the use of the term lone wolf describes such individuals, particularly in the context of homegrown terrorism, has become prevalent post 9/11 And hey, Facebook family, thanks for checking me out. I appreciate you guys. It's me. We're gonna start having guests on and everything, but thank you guys for tuning in. Again, this is the Believe Radio 24-hour inspirational gospel station. Want to thank Adamology, the executive director of it, and Curtis. He the man. He the man. All right, can't do this without you. You can't do these things by yourself. There's always going to be support. And if you're not getting support, then you're gonna fall flat on your face because you're gonna need some help. Um, that's what I like about medicine now. True medicine is practiced as a team approach, and the benefits should be the person that we're serving in terms of shared decision making and patient centered care. That's the goal. It's hard, but that should be the goal. Um, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And so, in summary, the concept of lone wolf terrorism and homegrown terrorism has existed for about several decades. This ain't nothing new. The specific term lone wolf gang promised in the 21st century as security and counterterrorism efforts adapted to address the challenges posed by individuals who acted independently in pursuit of their extreme goals or ideology. And I submit Mr. Card is that type of individual. Mr. Card is a homegrown terrorist, or was a homegrown terrorist. He acted independently, and we will find out what his views were and whether it was just a mental health challenge. I think for me, when I hear a man loses his job, it's like losing who he is. But that's why I say you can't define yourself by a job or by employment or by money, or by none of it. Define yourself by your love of God and your family. That's all you can do. And so I asked him to even profile him. He says he, individual, single male, lost a job, mental challenges, you know, is he more or she more likely to be a mass shooter? And women aren't in this conversation because it's a male piece. We see some of the suicide bombers with some of the women, but it's mostly men doing this. This is a men's club. It's a very, very well designed men's club. When you talk about the dehumanization of men in their quote unquote manhood, who they were as a man, who they think they should be, and how they are, man. Well, I define myself as a grandfather, by the way. Thanks, Caleb. So anyway, it says mass shooting are tragic events, and the profile of individuals involved in such incidents can vary widely. Factors contributing to these events may include uh, individuals with individual. These events may include individual motivations, mental health issues, personal grievances, access to firearms, and other complex factors. It's important to note that there's no single universal applicable profile for individuals who commit mass shootings. Each case is unique. That's what I think this should be. Take home. Mr. Card versus Black Lives Matter versus Malcolm X versus Martin Luther King versus the Vienna Boys Choir. Anybody can be a mass. Don't matter. Put enough things in the pot to boil and stir, and boom, there you have it. Um, Wanted to kind of flip the script here and talk a little bit about digestive diseases. I talked about it a while back, but I think it's kind of important. The holidays now, and people are going to be eating all these things they haven't eaten before, and when their stomach starts hurting, they just get absolutely crazy because it hurts. Real stomach pain hurts. No one should have it, but it happens. It says, and there's some data on digestive disease. It says that prevalence. About 60 to 70 million people are affected by digestive disease. Peptic ulcer disease, um, biliary colic, gastritis, um, reflux, gallbladder disease, cholestasis, you know, inflammation of the gallbladder, liver diseases. All those are digestive diseases. Pancreatic disease, and so ambulatory care visits was 48.3 million people in like 2010, and we can double that with COVID probably because long COVID is doing a lot of stuff in terms of GI stuff. It's coming. Primary diagnosis at office visit it was 36.6 million. That's in 2010. I was in 2010. Primary diagnosis at emergency room departments was 7.9. And that was 2010 also. It's a bunch of, they're large numbers. Um, Myself, I see a lot of GERD, a lot of reflux, a lot of pancreatitis, inflammatory bowel disease, um, diverticulosis, diverticulitis, which I'm going to talk about. Um, all chronic, all debilitating, all spectrums from I don't know I have this. I saw it on CT scan and there was all these little inflamed areas in my colon versus worst pain I ever had. I just ate something really minor and all of a sudden the pain is just intense. It was a 9 out of 10. They'd be saying that's the light number. So, and primary diagnosis office visits by 36.6 million. Primary diagnosis at emergency departments was again 7.9 million. Primary diagnosis at outpatient departments was 3.8 million. Hospitalizations, which is really big, 21.7 million. Mortality, yeah, you can die from this. 245,921 deaths. That was in 2009 last count. Diagnostic and inpatient procedures was 5.4 million, 12% of all inpatient procedures. Uh, in 2007, ambulatory surgical procedures 20.4 million. It was 20% of all right-in surgical procedures. I mean, this is like huge. You know, I mean, the person comes in. That's 12% of a possible budget. Inpatient procedures has its positives and its negatives. Ambulatory surgical procedures 20.4 million, by 20%. All right in. The cost was 140.8 billion dollars in 2004. It was 97.8 billion direct medical costs in 2004 and 44 billion indirect costs. For example, disability mortality in 2004. So GI diseases do play a major contributing factor in the healthcare cost, healthcare dollar paradigm in medicine. So I asked again uh, GPT chat to give us a quick summary of diverticulitis, diverticulosis. This is no means inclusive. Again, meet with your medical provider. And I also want to say, if you are in mental distress, get help. There are a number of access numbers. When you just put in your search, you find it, and it can be, it can be on the phone, it can be telechat. You know, there are options for people to have a discussion with someone about what's going on at that particular time and maybe access some services they wouldn't normally access because of that concern. So just think about that. So diverticulosis and diverticulitis. Lotus is the structural change. Itis is the inflammation. So the pathology. Diverticulosis is the presence of diverticuli, which are small bulging pouches that can form in the weak areas of the colon wall. So just imagine you have this tube-like structure, and the inner layer is the mucus layer, and but then there's the next layer of muscular layer, and then there's the outer layer that causes the colon to squeeze the food when it enters down the GI tract for digestion and removal by defecation. Um, but imagine that's not smooth. Imagine that area is almost like a tire, a tire track. You flip it up and you put it inside there, and you see those grinding areas that are can be free to put anything you want. If it's a tire, it's a nail, and if the nail or the uh, whatever object goes through the tire, then you puncture the tire. The same way with the colon. The colon's anatomy changes by inflammation, by injection, by genetics, and it's predisposed because of most people with diverticulosis slash diverticulitis don't have any symptoms. It only becomes the issue when they start having symptoms, and we'll talk about that. So diverticulosis is the presence of diverticuli, right? The outpouchings, the bulging pouches that can form in the weak areas of the colon wall. And just think about things that could trigger that. Stress, poor foods, foods that could get stuck in those areas. Although there's been a real discussion about not eating nuts and the nuts are okay to consume in these kinds of conditions. I found a lot of people have a problem with them. So, it almost just has to be like a looking at what you're eating and and seeing if this causes pain, inflammation, or problems having constipation or mucus or even blood, then it may be a item you need to remove out of your agenda. Even though we want people to in these kind of conditions to eat a lot of fiber, and it says that which are small the diverticuli, which are small bulging pouches that can form in the weak areas of the colon. These pouches are typically non-inflamed and asymptomatic, which means if you have this change, unless there's a real problem or a generation of the problem, then you wouldn't feel the prevalence. Diverticulosis is relatively common, especially in older individuals. Um, it's estimated that a significant portion of the population in developed countries has diverticulosis, which is its prevalence increases with age. Not only with age, the environment, genetics, whether you were a fast food lover like I was for the beginning of my life until I got into medicine and understand that wasn't what I was supposed to do and found better ways of eating. In order to make change, you have to know what you're changing to, right? Uh, it's estimated that a significant portion of the population in the developed country may have diverticulosis, and and the prevalence is increasing with age because we're aging, we're living longer, we're surviving longer. So more changes happen. I always tell people, there may be an expiration date on every organ in your body. You just don't know when it is. For some people, we extend the expiration date. For some people, we shorten the expiration date. And for some people, it doesn't make a difference. And in most cases, diverticulosis is a benign condition and does not cause significant morbidity, discomfort, death, or mortality. Death, morbidity, mortality. Morbidity is the incident and the problem with the disease. You know, stomach pain. You got to have to go get medicines. You got to go have a doctor's visit. You may even have to get scoped. That's the morbidity of the illness. The mortality is the death, dying from it. Infection, sepsis, uh, obstruction, that kind of thing. It's often discovered routinely on colonoscopies or imaging studies. More here in the CT scan is the best one in that. But colonoscopy is probably something if you haven't had, and you've got insurance, you might want to do just once just to make sure someone looks at the anatomy of your colon. Because I think these inflammation areas are developed, and if you see them early and understand them early, you might be able to do something about it. Again, this is a disease of older folks or disease of folks with poor diets or is genetically predisposed. Well, again, it's multifactorial. Multifactorial. Um, the risk of morbidity and mortality. In most cases, diverticulosis is a benign condition and does not cause significant morbidity or mortality on its own. It's often discovered incidentally during colonoscopy or imaging studies. However, diverticulosis can be a precursor to diverticulitis if the diverticuli become inflamed, so that poach those poaching pouches in the colon, large colon. Uh, Sometimes felt I think it's lower upper quadrant, lower left quadrant is the most significant area for presentation of this particular problem, diverticulosis into diverticulitis. The prevalence of diverticulitis is less common than diverticulosis. It occurs when one of the diverticuli become inflamed or infected. They can lead to a range of symptoms, including abdominal pain, severe fear, fever, change in bowel habits, complications such as abscess formation, or even bowel perforation. So it's something that you can't mess around with, something you need to be evaluated for, something you need to follow the advice of the provider that saw you. Uh, at the minimum, getting to see a gastroenterologist, be scoped to ensure there are no other areas of concern, and that this can be addressed in medicines as opposed to, and if necessary, surgery sometimes. Uh, it says the risk regarding morbidity and mortality. Diverticulitis can be associated with various degrees of morbidity and mortality. Mild cases may be managed with antibiotics and dietary modifications, but more severe cases can lead to complications, like anything else. It's a spectrum. Just see where you're at in the spectrum and deal with it. Like abscesses or perforations requiring surgery. But again, that's why you need to be proactive as opposed to reactive. It's not going to go away. It's not going to disappear. I know it's been several years or 8 years, but now we understand and see the change in the anatomy of your gastrointestinal tract, and it deserves further study. Um, Prevention. Management of strategy for diverticular disease could include diet modifications such as high fiber diet to promote regular bowel movements and reduce pressure within the colon, total lifestyle changes to maintain overall colon health. If you suspect you have diverticulitis or at risk due to diverticulosis, it's important to seek medical attention and follow the healthcare provider's recommendations. Um, and the best approach for managing diverticular disease can vary from person to person, and your healthcare provider can help determine the most appropriate course of action based on your individual circumstance and the severity of the condition. Which that's what's all happen. And again, my model is patient-centered care and shared decision making. So I think true clinicians don't really want to make the decisions that the population they're working with and the people they're taking care of will be reasonably satisfied with in terms of the outcome. That's just me. Uh, which brings me to, again, community voices and our article that I reviewed and I thought was just so important that we talk about it. And Lawmakers are finally taking menopause seriously. Workplaces should too. And this is an article that was written recently, published in one of our papers, National Peace. It says, menopause may finally be having a moment in government, as many men are saying, with more attention turning to the experience too many women who enter this phase of life. Most often, um, and more than a moment, though, we need a movement. This woman says, one that invests in better understanding and further destigmatization of menopause. Perhaps the most important step toward removing stigmas and most important step in removing stigmas about menopause is to improve our collective understanding of the normal hormonal process. The best way to understand menopause is to invest in scientific research into the symptoms that plague women and treatments that bring women relief. Menopause is a natural biological process that works at the end of the woman's reproductive years. It's typically occurs in middle age, but it can occur earlier, and with the average onset around 51, though it can vary widely. It may occur early, I guarantee you. My mom was early menopause, and she'd had 6 children, so menopause was really, really when there was nothing the providers could do about it. And I remember she was sweating one time and cold another, and just really, really angry. In fact, I was so angry she ran me out the house, which maybe that's a good idea, but I hadn't done anything. But that was mom, and she had that right. So I asked my stepdad. He says, "Well, she's just going on. She's just having her way," as he would say. So okay, that was it. That was the end of that story. Um, Menopause is a natural biological process that marks the end of a woman's reproductive years. And you can imagine all these hormones and everything's crashing. You've been doing this for so long, all of a sudden your body starts to say, "We're not doing this anymore." So menopause is defined as cessation of menstruation for at least 12 months. The transition is a result of hormonal changes in a woman's body, primarily involving a decline in the production of estrogen and progesterone by the ovaries. And I think my mom felt, my mom, I love her. She felt kind of sad because she thought it was making her less of a woman that she didn't have cycles. And if we had known what we know now, we would rally around and say, that's a good thing. You know, no more of that. Enjoy yourself. But we didn't know. So when she was feeling a little depressed, we didn't understand that. But now I understand now. And she was always a loving woman, always good about it. You know, it's the things you put up it and deal with as a family, particularly as a male in the family. Not knowing these things. That's why we men have to learn about. That's why young men have to learn about these things. When the mother's making transitions, they don't think the mother is crazy. She's having her day. She's changing. So the pathophysiology of menopause, talk about it, basically has like several key factors. Ovarian aging. As a woman ages, the ovaries gradually become less responsive to hormonal signals from the brain, leading to reduction in the number of ovary follicles and decline in the quality of the eggs. So a woman has so many eggs as she starts off on this menopause journey, and this spans over decades into her 40s and sometimes late 40s, 45, depending on who she is. But at some point in time, she ceases to get the signal that goes to the ovaries to produce an egg. Also, the eggs are less quality. That's why it's harder for older women to get pregnant, or there's more birth defects because the eggs are a little older. The results in irregular menstrual cycles and ultimately the cessation of menstruation. Hormonal changes. The reduction in ovarian function leads to decreased levels of estrogen and progesterone in the body. These hormones play a crucial role in the regulating the menstrual cycle of various aspects of the female physiology. This includes the bone density, the cardiovascular health, and the vaginal lubrication. And I think that's why women don't have start having don't have cardiovascular events till the late 40s and 50s because they've been protected by the hormones. We tried to early in medicine provide that protection through oral hormones, but it wasn't as effective. It's been some worrying back and forth, but the consensus in my thought is that the external hormones don't contribute to cardiovascular health. And if you're using it for that, you shouldn't use it for that until things have changed. Now the new preparations and maybe the data that's coming out, maybe, but at this point in time, no. But it also, again, the hormone changes also vaginal lubrication was a really big thing now for women in terms of the latter part of their lives and sexuality and the need to visit their provider to talk about because there are things that help with lubrication. And men need to understand that women are drier and need to be able to be lubricated. So just FYI, and take time. Long-term consequences and considerations related to menopause. I thought this was really interesting. It says bone health. The decrease in estrogen levels during menopause can lead to a loss of bone density, increasing risk of osteoporosis and fractures. The condition makes that's why women need bone density scans and need to monitor their bone health. Supplement calcium. If necessary, get the other kind of products that help with osteoporosis if diagnosed through a DEXA scan. This condition makes bones more fragile and prone to fractures, and maintaining bone health through diet, exercise, in some cases, medication is necessary. Cardiovascular health. Estrogen has a protective effect on the cardiovascular system, and its decline during menopause can increase the risk of heart disease. It's crucial for women to manage cardiovascular risk factors such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol through lifestyle changes, and if necessary, medication. Treat the blood pressure, treat the cholesterol. Get the exercise, lose the weight, and it's hard too because the really paradigm is moving to more big, beautiful women. How about that? General urinary health, vaginal dryness is really severe, and atrophy, which means the vagina tends to shrink up. This is all the things that happen when a woman has a cycle for a number of decades. It pumps, it feeds, it molds her, it makes what she is as a female. And loss of that makes some women kind of uncomfortable and unhappy, and they feel like they're not really fully women anymore, and they are. They always will be. My mother was always a woman. Till her death day, she was all a woman. Anyway, and so hormone replacement therapy or other treatments may be used to help with the dryness issues. Psychological and emotional well-being. Menopause can be accompanied by mood swings, anxiety, depression in some women. A lot of women. Physiological support, psychological support. In some cases, medication may be necessary to address these mental health concerns. And just understanding that women are going through a change with this. Sexual health, change in hormone levels can affect sexual desire and response. Communication with healthcare provider can help address meeting and sexual concerns during menopause. Yeah, I think it's a work in progress. Cognitive health. Some studies suggest there may be a link between menopause and cognitive changes, and more research is needed. I think it's important to note that menopause is a natural phase of life, and while it comes with challenges, many women navigate this transition successfully with their healthcare providers, lifestyle modifications, and hormone therapy. Uh, and the reason why I brought this up is because the Menopause Act of 2022 would have required that INH identify more funding and it had deployed for menopause. It would have allocated 100 million to new menopause research, but the bill went nowhere. I want to comment on that. We can legislate women's bodies during their most productive years about whether they can have or not have children, but through the years in which they're having challenges, we can't provide the money to deal with the challenges of menopause. I think that's screwed up. That's totally backwards. And it's men that's making this legislation. That's why I'm bringing it up. I think it's so irresponsible of those men to make these determinations on one end that you have to have children, and on the other end, you can't get treated for menopause. Um, that's just my thought. And and I'll finalize this because I'll leave it this way. What are you gonna do? Be open about what's going to family members, and two about menopause. Be open about what you're going through. Menopause is a global issue, and women need to address it. 84% of women surveys say symptoms industry with the lives is imperative that we understand those issues and talk about it more. Uh, uh, Tip two: look to the representation of the media. Hopefully, shows like this will talk more about menopause and in New York Times. You know, you know naming one Naomi Watts, folks like things Stripes, Gwen Puthro. We need to be a rebranding of that. She said, "Shine more positive light on your story." Hey, yeah, I go. Certainly women in the workplace now that are aging are having challenges just being in the workplace and working, and we need to understand that and support as opposed to uh, not understand why they're having a bad day, quote unquote. Uh, and we want women, as I've always said, to take care of themselves, please. And this talk was basically as a discussion. Dr. Gilbert Lynn, she's wrote in a book, the first S5s of care. She's a gynecologist, and this article first appeared in First Women for Women. I want to thank you for listening in. I want to thank you for checking us out. Miss Howard's show will be on next week, and I want to thank her for giving me this time. I just want to tell you folks that COVID is not over. There's new variants, and it's affecting the early, the underling folks with underlying health conditions and unvaccinated individuals, and folks that conjugate in the sense. It's not over yet. Go vaccine. I got mine. Get yours. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Hey, love you all. Appreciate you. We'll see you next time on Education is the Best Medicine. I want to thank the staff and Curtis and all the folks for hey, keeping me straight. Thank you, folks.